Tell me something. Did all of you always saw yourself as an artist since, like, as you were younger, as a child? How have your journeys evolved into being where you are? Your work has evolved into that.
I'll start. I have an accounting degree. And never from a business perspective, yes, but I never saw myself as an artist until a few years ago. About 10 years ago, I went to fashion design school in the middle of my life.
Well, I drew 10,000 horses when I was a child, so I always loved drawing. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but I love to draw.
I saw myself as an artist because I've always, as a kid, I took art classes. I loved to draw. I filled sketchbook after sketchbook of horses, lots of unicorns, lots of Pegasuses.
Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Arts to Hearts podcast. We're back with another episode with another set of three amazing artists. These artists are a part of our upcoming and now live book, which by the time we actually push this out, you will be able to see. We have Lauren, Stephanie, and Amy present from the from the book that we've recently published. It's a success book. The theme is 101 Floral Artists. The idea is we curated a book which was featuring artists, and we had asked artists to share their floral art inspired, like art inspired by florals. And we're so excited to be able to push this work of book out in the world. And I'm so excited to have these three amazing artists from the book to share the story, talk about the work, and talk about the artwork. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It
Yes,
was a
thank
great
you.
conversation.
And big congratulations on being published in this is a sample I've been showing to everybody, but congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Guys, would you like to introduce yourself? Lauren, would you start? Can you introduce who you are, what you do for everybody who's listening?
Thank you again for having me, Charuka. My name is Lauren Battistini. I'm Houston, Texas based, but was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I do floral and travel illustration type art, but I am a professional architectural color consultant. So that's what I do full time. And then I do art on the side. Thank you again for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming. Amy, you can go ahead.
Sure, thank you. And thanks for having me. So, I am primarily a figurative painter. However, I have this botanical thread that goes through all my paintings. So, when I saw this call for this book, I thought this would be just a great fit. Currently, I'm on a residency at the Blodell Island or Blodell Reserve residency. So I'm in the middle of creating resources with native species in Washington State, where I'm from, um, with the idea of applying it to a future series of paintings. So, and I'm from the Pacific Northwest. Yeah.
I can see some really beautiful, colorful works behind you.
Well, thank you. I bring the color. That's one thing I'm known for, and I can't stop myself. So, yeah.
Stephanie, would you like to go next?
Again, Stephanie Mulvihill. I'm in New York City, and it's interesting. I was thinking about like how this idea of floral and flowers and how they relate to my work. Because my work is mostly figurative. I work a lot with the body, but I've been bringing a lot of the symbol of the magnolia flower, which I did some research on. It's very interesting because it is the oldest flower in the fossil record. It's about it has a fossil record of about 60 million years, and so this idea of something that is so fragile can be have such longevity, and it's something that's kind of very enduring. And so I kind of like that dichotomy of a flower, which is super fragile and is something that it's very impermanent because it blooms and then dies. But the fact that this particular flower has been around for 60 million years, it kind of predates us, and so yeah. So that idea of the symbol of the flower being this impermanent versus permanence, and yeah, so that comes a lot into my work.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Tell me something. Did all of you always saw yourself as an artist since, like, as you were younger, as a child? How have your journeys evolved into being where you are? Your work has evolved into that.
I'll start. I have an accounting degree. And never from a business perspective, yes, but I never saw myself as an artist until a few years ago. About goodness, 10 years ago, I went to fashion design school in the middle of my life, and I had to take a fashion illustration class. It's the only class in the entire program that I loved. I cried through every other class. This is how I discovered that I'm an artist, but I've always had a fascination with color. So I've been able to weave the two worlds of color and art together.
What about you, Amy?
Well, I drew 10,000 horses when I was a child, so I always loved drawing. Um, Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but I love to draw. But I was a cultural anthropology major, and I became a bilingual teacher. So I taught for several years, um, and then but kept this thread of my artwork just kept going and kept growing. And so I taught until 2022, and I stopped then and devoted full time to my art because the momentum of things I was doing, I couldn't do both anymore. So I just got through the pandemic on the other side, and then I said, I done with that chapter. And every day I come in the studio, and I'm actually busier now than when I was teaching, which is really hard to imagine. But I'm just completely grateful for this life.
Thank you so much for sharing. Stephanie, what about you?
I saw myself as an artist because I've always, as a kid, I took art classes. I loved to draw. You know, filled sketchbook after sketchbook of, yeah, horses, lots of unicorns, lots of Pegasuses. Um, so I always did make art. And then I did go to school. Like I went to university for art. I do teach. I'm a teacher as well. I teach art now.
Hands. Yeah. I think this is something a lot of artists like we have this. I can relate to Lauren because I also was in fashion, Lauren, and I did go to a fashion school. And fashion illustration was my best class. And, I was interviewing. Just in the beginning of my class, I remember this was my first class. We were given an assignment that we had to find an illustrator's work that we really admired and go on Pinterest and copy their work. And I remember going on Pinterest and being a fashion student and all of that. I saw Katie Rogers, who used to go by the name of Paper Fashions. I brought it on the podcast recently, and I looked at her work and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, I want to do this. And that was one class always that apart from sewing, needling, and all of those things, that was literally my best class. And when I started a business, I think Stephanie, like she said, I felt like even though I was in the creative field, I felt like I had to do things by my hand as an artist and make something. The desire to create something by my own hands than just you know get it done by someone. And I think that time for me also, it was like, I want to be an artist. I want to create something from my own hands and get it dirty and make that mess to feel that groundingness. What do you think is your number one reason for being, why do you do the work that you do, being an artist? What is your, if I were to ask you, like, one thing, what motivates you or what brings you down to, being an artist is not an easy profession for sure. Making a living, not easy. The time, not easy. None of it is easy. Yet, not only we do it, a lot of artists choose to, uh, do it being unpaid, doing it as on the side, or just because, you're compelled to create. What do you think are your reasons?
Well, I have two. One is it's therapeutic for me, honestly, it just is. But secondly, I love how well received my art is. When someone buys it, I see the look on their face. That's so gratifying for me. That right there is why I continue to do art.
Well, I think one of the reasons is I can't not do art. I'll be doing art until the day I'm in the ground. And if I've had periods in my life where I've had illness and some significant illness, and I kept doing art because art connected me to life. But the other thing is, I feel like my work is about the ideas underneath the paint and the canvas. And people do respond to it, but it's about helping people, or not helping people, I shouldn't say that. I have this philosophy where we're all doing the best we can with the consciousness we're given, and kind of giving people permission to be easy on themselves, to accept, to forgive, to and if you go on my website and look at my work, it'll kind of make more sense. But just kind of give people back to themselves in a really just wonderful way. So
And the idea that, we all go through these periods of instability, and how do we process that, and how does our identities and our sense of self change kind of through those like moments where the ground underneath you feels really unstable, and just yeah. So there's that, and then the idea the flowers kind of came in. Because one, I mean, the magnolia flower is kind of a beautiful flower. It's a really kind of weird and interesting flower. And then I like found the history of it, the idea that it's been here so long, and so this idea of permanence, that even though there is kind of this fragility and change, that there is this kind of underlying permanence, that our bodies and ourselves, they'll it's going to be different, but we'll get there on the other side. um, yeah, so it's kind of the ghost is kind of like this idea of like your past self is kind of like, but it's kind of always present, but you're changing, and
Yeah.
like you don't really know
Right.
where this is going, and it's
Yeah,
kind of
I absolutely relate with that. I
riding
think
wave.
sometimes art, when I lost my mom, art was one of the biggest things that helped me very passively. Just I think just trying to make sense, even though I don't know how that makes sense, but just understanding what am I feeling. Okay, tell me something. I'm going to pull out your works, and then we'll talk about those works that we, I don't know, you cannot see me. I can see your work. You can see it in the drafts that you have. I know you don't have the book in your hands right now, but I want to particularly talk about the works that we've published in the book. I want people to be able to, when they look at the book and they turn the pages and they look at your work, they're able to really not only look at a piece of art, but really hear your voice and your story and what you were thinking while you were making this work and what your story and idea is. I will start with Lauren. Lauren, I have your work in front of me, and it is called, let me see, it's called Rudakino, if I'm Rudakino. Okay. It's an oil. Thank you. It's an oil pastels, pastel crayon, and acrylics painting, and it has these colorful flowers with white vases um, on it. Do you want to share with us what was going in your mind, and what is there a story, something you want to talk about with us about this artwork?
You bet. So, this piece is a convergence of three ideas. The first of which is I wanted to start making florals that sort of leap off the page, that are wild and rebellious. I have been a rule follower my entire life. That's another story for another day. And I am just so tired of following rules. I just want to run wild. So, the first thing is to let the flowers run off the canvas just a little bit and be kind of messy. The second thing is that because I'm a color specialist, I'm always interested in the color of the year. So peach is the Pantone color of the year, a peachy kind of color. So my rendering is a peachy pink, so it's my take on it. Thirdly, I'm very fascinated with the Greek language. I'm studying it. I've been to Greece 3 times. So rodakino means peach in Greek.
Oh, wow, interesting. What really, but why flowers? What inspires you of them?
I'm going to give you a very funny and simple answer. It is very hard to mess up flowers. They are always going to look beautiful. And as a newer artist, I want to express myself in a subject that I know I can make it look beautiful, even if the lines aren't quite right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Um, Amy, I have your work. It's a beautiful, wide, bright. I don't know. That's what I can interpret. It's a beautiful girl with this veil and white dress and beautiful flowers on the background, on the head, in front. And this artwork is called The Language of Flowers. And there's
Hmm.
another keyword, gladiolus. It's
Yes,
oil on canvas. Would you
yes.
like to share with us?
Sure. This series, The Language of Flowers, is part of a museum exhibition I had this past summer, um, called Family Album, where I worked from historical photos. It was much about generational transition, especially our mothers, grandmothers' generation. And so I took four photographs, historical photographs of brides on their wedding day. And in in Canton, Ohio, which is my hometown. And so this particular bride, I surrounded her with gladiolas because I looked at the photograph and I paired some sort of metaphorical meaning where gladiolas are have a meaning of strength. And when I looked at this woman, and because part of the theme is the women of these generation, they they held the families together. They held a lot of secrets. They navigated a very um, difficult world at times that was very gender biased. And so it was just kind of a homage to these women. And so I surrounded these women. There's different flowers. There's like lilac and roses. Each bride has a different set, just surrounded with those flowers. And um, basically just kind of a animation of the moment, this very important moment of their lives. Typically, the brides were not smiling, which I realized was the social kind of more of the day. However, there were other reasons for them not to smile on their wedding day as well, in just the context of the world in which they lived. So they're done with love.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to reiterate, I think, what everyone else has said. I think that there's kind of, it's almost like no choice. It's just that's the way I think. And I think that's the way I interact with the world. I do that visually. I do like feel that compulsion to make things, whether it be like I'm sewing something or I'm like sculpting something or I'm drawing something. I, even if I like, I took, yeah, there were many years that I didn't do much as an artist when my like son was little and I was full time kind of mom and working full time, and it was just a lot. But I still like it always would come back. I'd never not be able to make something. And I do like that idea, the connection of my experience. I feel like art connects our experience to other people's experiences as well, and I feel like having that human connection is like kind of what keeps me going and kind of what helps make sense of everything, life, the universe, everything. I'm sorry, it usually doesn't happen, but anyway, it's part of a series that it's using my body. Like they're essentially all self portraits, but it's using kind of my body as this um, kind of metaphor or allegory when like you're going through these periods of like instability where this ideas of change. No, you can't hear me. If you can't hear me, tell me. Oh, you hear me? Okay. Yeah. So periods of yeah, I never know on my end. I'm just going to keep talking. Um, but these periods of kind of instability and where you're kind of like foundation of in the world kind of all of a sudden shifts, and so I kind of went through that a couple years back. Relationships were kind of shifting, and the fact that like this idea of like motherhood, my son was getting older, and so that identity kind of started to change, and so there was this period of like instability, and so this idea of using the body as an allegory of change and evolution, and that's why like there's like different parts, the pieces that are kind of all put together. Some of them have several arms, some have several legs. Most of them don't have a head. The head is usually covered with like flowers or birds or.
Oh, wow. You know, I don't know if you know Sarah Dwight-Weller's work. She has this series. I'll share her link with her. Shout out to Sarah. She's an amazing artist. And she has a similar body of, like, not on, she's been exploring this idea in the same context. How photographs, old photographs, she has a series called Hidden Mothers, and how old photographs were family portraits. When children's photographs were taken, and when there was a father or whatever, and because they didn't want to show the mother, they would put like a white or whatever a fabric on the mother, so you can see a child standing and a fabric on behind, but it's actually a mother covered underneath. So she does like a beautiful series. You have to check her work out. It's stunning.
I will. That's great.
Wonderful. Okay, I have Stephanie. I have this amazing work. It's titled Ghost. It's a mixed media on paper mounted on canvas. But let me describe it for anyone who you will attach the image for sure. But it's this. It's a figure. It's a woman. I can see the hands and the face, the skull basically is hold it or from a different part of the body, and I can see a lot of greens, and I can see a few birds on front, a few birds on the back. I'm very interested in. I want to hear what were you thinking. What's your idea behind this?
Yes, I
Mm.
did. Yes. All right. So Ghost. So it's part of a series that I've been doing, and it's using.
That's a beautiful. And well, also when like you say, I also see it this way. Like um, children are literally like a part of a body, but also when you let them go when they're growing. Yeah. So it's like, it's a part of you, your hair, whatever part of our body, and but you're literally putting it out there and letting it live its life of its own. Lovely. Okay. What about one last question? What do you think has been your biggest strength and struggle all these years that you've worked as an artist? What would you consider the hardest part, and something that you feel like was something that you feel became a strength for you?
Okay. So the hardest part for me has been developing my own unique style because I didn't come from an art background. So I've been exploring florals, travel illustrations. I was doing fashion faces for a while. So it's been the most challenging to narrow it down to a couple of subjects and categories. Now, where I think my strong suit is because I'm a color professional. I have no problem whatsoever mixing and matching all kinds of different colors and doing some non traditional color schemes. Color is never an issue for me. It's really been figuring out my style and what subjects I really want to draw or paint.
I think that makes sense. What about you? Okay, we've lost Stephanie. I was thinking we'll bring her first, just in
Oh,
case we lose her. But go ahead, Amy.
okay. I would say my strength would be my persistence. I have, this has been the long arc of a career. And, you know, I have this thing, get comfortable with uncertainty and rejection and learn how to move on. So I think, I think I got that down. I think something I struggle with is that struggle at times with your own self confidence in your own work, your belief in your work. And you do, but you don't. Um, Sometimes when it comes to presenting your work to the world, you kind of hold back, or you really have to go forward without caring what other people are thinking about your work. You have to stick close to that voice. And I have to say, I have struggled with that sometimes. So,
Yeah, no, makes sense. What about you, Stephanie? Before I lose you.
I know. Well, if you lose me, I'll come right back in. Um, so I actually funny. I did go to art school, and I have like studied like got a master's and an undergraduate. But I feel like Lauren, I had the same thing where I needed to find my own voice because sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
study too much of other people's
Yeah.
work, and then you're like,
Yep.
what about,
Who are
well, this
you?
person's doing this and this person's doing this, and like, but what is my art? Like, what do I,
Yeah.
and also believing in that,
Yeah.
and not,
Yep.
that my art, my work isn't good enough. This person's, doing figurative work. Now it's actually had a resurgence, figurative work, but for years it wasn't en vogue, right? And so, but just trusting yourself and trusting the work that you make,
No, I think that's a great.
has been a struggle, and
Yeah.
you know.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for sharing about your work and also sharing about, your life as an artist. I just want to ask you, and there's no compulsion, you can be as honest. Firstly, congratulations on being a book. But you have how was it? How was your experience being a part of the book? And if you have any feedbacks and reviews for us of being in the process, I know it was an intense process, but I just want to, hear out from you what would you say being a part of the 101 Floral book?
Good question. I think it was relatively painless. I mean, I did the because I was in the studio. I was in your studio book as well, so I'm probably blending the two together. But part of it was the questions and like typing up my responses to the questions. But that's always like, I mean, it's a good exercise talking about your work and kind of who you are and your story, which is always a struggle for me. Writing and talking about your work is, when it's deeply personal, can be challenging. But I think it was relatively painless. And I mean, I think the spread looks good, and I can't wait to see the finished.
Yeah. And yeah, I felt the
Yeah.
same. I felt like it was easy. Um, it was helpful to me that sometimes you send out more than once, so that, oh yeah, I need to do that. But yeah, I felt like it was sequential steps that made sense, and it was easy to participate.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And I found that this was a really nice, seamless process, and it was such a joy and an honor to be a part of this project with 99 other women, 99 other artists.
Oh,
It's been a
yes.
great project for me to be a part of. And you all did a good job with communication. And as Amy said, there was a sequential order to this. It was easy to follow, and you were also very responsive, Charuka. I remember I had a couple of questions for you, and you
Thank you so
responded right away.
Oh, thank you so much. You guys keep us we keep you on your toes and you keep us on our toes.
Mm.
I think what's exciting about, curating a book together is, for us, even though it's, we're always improving our process, we're trying to make things smoother, better, but also we want this to be as an inclusive process, not only us deciding and making sure everything, but we've always tried, like for this one, I've said it before, we did a whole different theme, and when we checked a print, and I was like, I just don't feel the book has come together, and we really need to change the layout, and we had to overnight move things, and we reached out to you back again, and it was a lot of chaotic, but it was like, it was a very participative process from all of you also, and you being able to do that with us. I think I really appreciate that. Okay. One last
Thank you.
thing. Where can people find you, support you? Of course, I would say anybody who wants to look at their work and support their work, of course, you can buy a copy of the 101 Floral Art Book. You can find the link in the episode, you can find on our Instagram. But there's several other ways you can support their work, our work. You can buy a copy, you can share this episode, you can buy their art. We will list their Instagram, websites, everything for you to be able to look at that. But you can also like like this, share this, leave a comment on everybody's Instagram, follow them. I think there's so many ways for anybody to support the work that we do and the work our artists do, and it's a very important part for us. So okay, everybody, can you let us know where can people follow you from here, and where can they find you?
Well, I'm most active on Instagram, so it's at Amy Pleasant underline Seattle. And then my website is amypleasantseattle.com.
Perfect. What about you, Stephanie? We have you, go ahead.
I know. Here. I'm both on Instagram. I do have a website. My website is stephaniemulvihill.com. And then Instagram, I'm at S Mulvihill Art.
Perfect.
That's it. Mulvihill Art. But I am active. I'm active in both. I do need to update my website a little bit with some more, like a couple of new pieces that I finished. But Instagram is that's more
Connection
immediate.
point.
Then you kind of
Yeah.
see process and yeah.
Okay.
And
Go ahead, Lauren.
I am most active on Instagram. My handle is at LFB Color. That's L like Lauren, F like Frank, B like boy, color, COLOR, the American way. And then my website is www.lfbcolor.com.
Perfect. We'll make sure we link all your links and your work and the link to the book in the show notes of this episode. And thank you so much for everybody joining us. Thank you, Amy, Lauren, and Stephanie. Thank you so much for your time. And again, a big congratulations. I can't wait to see your books in your hand. And when that happens, make sure you share your photos and videos with us.
Yes. Thank you, Charuka, so much for this opportunity
Thank
to be
you.
interviewed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharuka.
Yeah, thank you. It was a great conversation.
Thank you.